Hi, Kelly. I have a question for you today that I was hoping you could answer me that I can put on my blog. I've been thinking a lot lately about the food we eat. And for me, I think food is probably our first defense line in our health. So I was thinking about how food is actually more important than exercise. That if we eat a really healthy diet, then we don't have to compensate with exercise. So if we eat super clean, then we simply need to keep our bodies moving in moderate ways as opposed to abusing our bodies with really super high impact and injurious cardio or yoga or exercise in order to correct poor eating habits. So what would you think of answering that question for me in a short video? Thanks, Kelly. Mwah.
Hi, Kelly Childs here, and I am just going to share with you a question that I get quite often. And I get it via social media, via Facebook or via Twitter. I also get questions too via telephone. I own Kind Food and Kelly's Bake Shop in Burlington, Ontario, Canada. And it's a vegan and a gluten-free establishment, very healthy, very organic, and I guess what it does is it brings a lot of people to me thinking that I am the person that would know these answers. So I thought that I might share this with you because my background might be a little bit more unique than others, but it's always great to share. So I grew up in the early 60s, and I born in 63, and I was raised with my mom and my dad and my sister, and we got to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day together. Very, very lucky girl I was, and most girls, though, and most families, I guess, in our neighborhood sort of ate the same way. We got to have meals with our parents most of the time. And moms would then go to the grocery store. They'd pick up their veggies, pick up their fruit, pick up their meats, pick up their milk, and everything was at the local grocery store, bring it home, and you'd make the meals from scratch. Things were not really processed back then. It's just the way that it was. So now, back in those days too, mums were, and I guess even dads were too for that matter, they were on the thinner side. You didn't see your mothers, though, going out doing jogs around the block. You didn't see them out doing yoga. You didn't see them, going out on their bikes and they were riding for, 20 kilometers. No, they just ate properly. And then we go fast forward to like the 80s and 90s. Okay, body shapes start changing a little bit. There's more fast food. What's also happened too, though, is that kids have become more sedentary, right? They're staying indoors now or watching TV more, playing on their games and not being as much, running around. Not as much as even as what they even do now. It's even less. And what we found too is that body shapes started to change then. What also changed too then was wheat. Wheat is very much genetically modified. So the GMO wheat was introduced, I'm going to say probably in the 70s. The wheat that we have now in this day and age is very different than the wheat was back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So that wheat is really, really a far distant cousin, but it was genetically modified, it was GMO'd, to become a little bit more resilient for growing, to actually increase the crops, to allow to feed more starving third world countries. But what's happened, though, with this particular wheat is that it's very indigestible. So, hence the celiac disease is so prevalent now. Gluten intolerance is so prevalent now. People are getting these big wheat bellies now, and body shapes are changing, and it's like really weird-looking stuff going on. So, what I have found is that when I reflect on how it was back in those day and ages, even with television shows, the Brady Bunch, the Partridge Family, and Mary Tyler Moore Show, and Leave It to Beaver. And these mums were all like thin-waisted, nice shaped, nice figured, and you didn't ever see that they were going to the gym. You didn't even see that they were doing these crazy workouts. You didn't see that they were training, 18 times a week. You didn't see that there was this craze that we had to work out to work off what we were eating. So mums back then just ate sensibly. They taught their kids to eat sensibly. But what we're finding now is that there is 67% of our population is overweight. It's unbelievable. Of that 67%, over half have been diagnosed obese. Now, when you get into these kind of categories, what you're going to get is these high incidences of chronic diseases, chronic illnesses, like diabetes, coronary heart disease. You've got kids with autism, kids with ADD. I didn't have kids in my classes back when I was in public school that had autism. I didn't really know what it was. You're going to get people that have these autoimmune disorders that are on the rise in a way like we have never seen before. It is so taxing on our healthcare system. It's probably going to bankrupt the United States of America if it's not already on the brink of doing it already. And Canada's really not too far behind with how much money that we put out for our health care, for prescription drugs. And really, what we've done is we've just killed ourselves with this toxic stuff that we call food. And it's not even food anymore. It's so unnatural. It's completely foreign to our bodies, and it is completely, really indigestible. So what I think now is that when you look back on the 50s and 60s when these mums were walking around and they were more on the tinier side, and probably size of 0s to 4s, the real 0, 2s, 4s, because nowadays, as you know, sizing for clothing has become much more moderate and I guess increasing in size. So an average size person now is probably, I don't even know, size 10 or 12, maybe even more than that. But something has to give. And so I think what's happening now is that people are becoming much more conscious of getting back into the kitchen and doing their foods and more process themselves in the kitchen as opposed to, processed from the stores and from the fast food stores. So what I have encouraged people is that, yes, working out is great. You got to work the most important muscle in your body, which is your heart. But what you also need to do is eat properly. And to weigh out working out versus nutrition, the food you take in, I'm going to say easily, from my experience, is 80 to 85% of what I'm all about is through nutrition, is through my health. I could, eat cheese, pepperoni pizzas, I guess, every day, and then feel that I had to go to the gym every night and work out for 3 or 4 hours to work it off, but I'm still building toxicity in my body. I'm still creating cancers. I'm still creating these autoimmune disorders and chronic diseases. So I'd rather heal from the inside out. I don't really ever have to look after my body weight. It just naturally morphs to what it should be. I am a plant-based eater, 100%, so I don't take in even any animal products at all whatsoever. So I don't do meats or dairies or, cheeses, butter, any of that, fish, eggs, none of that. I eat completely plants, veggies, fruits. I do grains. I do quinoa, millet, amaranth, buckwheat, and spelt. Those are the only 5 superfood grains that I will eat. I do nuts, and I eat tons of the dark green veggies are the best for me, and tons of water. And I try to reduce my red wine consumption, but probably that's my only vice that I have in my life. But that is the answer to my question. It might be a little bit longer than what you anticipated, but I think that you can't just answer this cleanly with one word. It doesn't take rocket science to figure out that our society is in trouble. It's in a horrible state of affairs, and we need to make some changes. And it has to start from really the inside out. You can't just do workouts to cure disease and to cure obesity and overweightness. So start from the inside, nourish yourself, make yourself feel good, and believe me, your body's going to pay you back in spades. See you later.
Finding a great yoga class is becoming more costly and difficult. Now there's a better way to self-improvement in the privacy of your own home. Visit Dr. Melissa West at melissawest.com and start getting free weekly online videos. Real yoga for real people.